Hello, my name is Robert Larson. I'm the owner of the Larson Law Office in Mesa, Arizona. The law gave us a number of factors that we were supposed to look at, or more importantly, that a judge was supposed to look at, but it didn't really tell us exactly how much spousal maintenance should be or how long it should last. We put down lawyer for petitioner, and for case number, we're just going to put in a fake case number, and I'm just going to say, I just put some numbers in there. As far as the county, you could choose any county you want. I'm going to choose Maricopa. Party A, I'm going to say Joe Smith. Date of birth, let's just say today's the 20th, so let's just go with June 20th of 1980. And Jane Smith, let's put her as the wife and the respondent, and let's just put her down with the same birth date. That's fine. And then the party seeking maintenance, that's going to be the respondent. Let's say date of marriage was January 1st, 2005. And date of service of process, this is the date when the petitioner filed the documents and then they had to serve the respondents. Let's just say it was March 1st of 2025. The family size, let's just say 4. And if you have a mortgage, then you have to put down the principal. So let's put down $500 for mortgage principal. Let's just say $100,000 for husband, and then let's put in $30,000 for wife. She's the one who's asking for spousal maintenance. And you can see when I did that, different numbers came up. You can see these ones, and you can also see this too. So it gives a low end, a midpoint, and a high. And you can see the ranges from 1,153 to 1,775. So there's a pretty big difference there. The midpoint is the 1,464. And then it also gives a low and a high of duration. So from 12 months to 96 months, sorry. And one thing to remember about this is these are just presumptions. Judge is not absolutely bound by these. First of all, the law that existed before the calculation still exists now, and that requires the judge to make a two-step determination. The first step is, does the person seeking spousal maintenance qualify? And there's a number of different ways that someone can qualify. But if they don't qualify, then this formula doesn't even get completed. So you don't even look at this formula if the person doesn't qualify. So if they do qualify, then you have to look at the amount and duration. And this formula is meant to be a guide. A judge can go off of this formula if you can prove that there's a reason for an exception. So let's say these factors exist, but for whatever reason, wife inherited $10 million. Well, she doesn't really need spousal maintenance, does she? So there's always exceptions. That might be an unusual circumstance, but there are circumstances that you can argue either way for the person seeking spousal maintenance or the person whose spousal maintenance is being sought from. You can argue your exceptions, and if you can win that argument, the judge could decide that there's not going to be any spousal maintenance, even though the formula says that there would be. The judge could go higher than the range here. The judge could also go higher or lower on the amount. So you still have the opportunity to argue your case. The judge still ultimately has to make the decision, and this is a guide. Now, does that mean that this is nothing? No, because I'm pretty sure the percentage is well high into the 90s that the judges are going to go off of somewhere in the range that's provided here. It's going to be very rare that they're going to find that an exception exists. But even within this presumption, as you can see, there's a low end and a high end for the amount and the duration of time. Therefore, the judge can go anywhere from 1,153 to 1,775 without even having to give a reason for it, because those are within the presumptive range. And it's the same thing for 12 months and 96 months. This is actually a huge range, because just imagine 1,153 times 12 months compared to 1,775 times 96 months. It's a huge difference. There's a lot of room to argue your case there, but this is how the calculator works, though. If you mess around with the numbers, you'll see how it changes things. So if I put in 150,000, you watch, those numbers just went up quite a bit. But for the wife, if I put in more money for her, that brought it back down again. If I go back to the 100,000, now wife is earning 60,000. For example, that brought it down a lot as well. So you can see how these things are affected. Family size, I'm not sure how much that affects things, but let's change that to 5. So it made a little difference. I think the biggest factors are the income. So far, what I've seen in the first 2 or 3 years of this is there's a lot more consistency in terms of being able to predict what a judge is going to do when it comes to spousal maintenance. They're not always going to go in the middle, but there's a pretty good chance that they're going to go somewhere in the middle on the amount and the duration. You have to look at the specific circumstances of each case, but it's made it a little bit easier to predict what's going to happen. The other thing that has happened is this has been more favorable to people seeking spousal maintenance as opposed to the person who spousal maintenance is being sought from. So in other words, judges were more stingy in the past on awarding spousal maintenance, and now this formula, they're giving it out more frequently and larger amounts than they used to. I've also heard some comments that may be true for Maricopa County, but not necessarily true of the other counties, which suggests that maybe the other counties were doing a better job of following the law and the ideas behind spousal maintenance better than Maricopa County. So the bottom line is people are getting more spousal maintenance than they used to before the formula, but that's just my opinion. What happens when you do this calculation is you can print a copy of it. It doesn't look great, but you can print a copy of it and you can attach it to your court pleadings, and you can ask the judge to adopt your version. And there's still a lot of room to argue on here as well. Sometimes people's income is really easy to figure out. They just get an annual salary, or maybe they work on an hourly rate, whatever it is. Some people's income is real simple. Other people's income is more difficult. People who work on commissions, or self-employed, or seasonal work. So sometimes there's a lot of arguments about what people's income is. But the bottom line is this is the formula. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment, or you can call my office and I'll be happy to talk about it with you. This is one of the most highly contentious and highly litigated issues in divorces, and I think it still is. It gives us a little bit more predictability, but it's still not something that people generally want to settle on very easily. So it takes a lot of work to either get a settlement or present your case properly in court. So if you have, like I said, if you have any questions, you can call my office or you can comment and I'll be happy to respond. If you find this helpful, the video, and make sure you subscribe so you can get more in the future. Thanks.